Starker, who suffered. A candle will be lit by Jack Ellis and Madison Logan, Mr. Starker's musical grandchildren.
I wasn't even 18. Pierre Seal's Holocaust as a 175er. Over the course of the Nazi Party's dominion over much of Europe, contemporary reports hold that no fewer than 15 million human beings were systematically annihilated in ghettos, concentration camps, death camps, or the environs of a myriad of other places. The vast majority of these individuals were ruthlessly hunted down for their inferior ethnicity or political status. Neither Jew, Roma, Slav, nor communist, 17-year-old Pierre Seal of Mulhouse, France, was nevertheless arrested and barbarically tortured in a campaign to eliminate the 175ers, Europe's homosexuals. Confining his story for more than 4 decades, Pierre chose to break his silence in response to an unmoved world, a world where youth again faced cycles of animosity and oppression. Pierre Seal was born on August 16, 1923, at Haguenau, France, in France's Alsace region. His affluent Catholic family resided in Mulhouse, where they owned a successful pastry shop downtown. In 1936, Mulhouse was home to more than 96,000, including a sizable Jewish community. It was here in his late teens that Pierre encountered Mulhouse's small gay subculture, which was concentrated in a public garden known as the Square Steinbach. Following World War I, neighboring Germany had transformed into an Eden for homosexuals. Contrary to this new era culture, since 1871, German Penal Code had contained paragraph 175, a ban on homosexuality. Despite the openness of the gay community under the Weimar Republic, authorities in some localities chose to maintain lists of suspected homosexuals. The Nazi Party's rise to power in 1933, however, prompted rigorous enforcement of paragraph 175. In 1934, the Gestapo established an office to combat homosexuality and abortion. State policies subsequently aimed to entirely eradicate these practices for the purpose of raising the birth rate of the Germanic master race. Germany's formerly vibrant gay culture was forced underground as bars closed and mass arrests permeated the community with fear. In the decades since the Holocaust, Genocide Watch has established a sequence of 8 stages that characterize genocidal occurrences. By 1937, the Nazi Party had successfully classified homosexuals by the bars they visited, organized an agency to eradicate the gay community, and dehumanize them as a plague or tumor. Falsely blaming the 1933 Reichstag fire on an alleged homosexual communist, the Nazi regime polarized the gay community from the general population. Thus, Before the onset of World War II, Nazi authorities had already implemented the 4 precipitating stages of genocide. An aura of apprehension pervaded Alsace as France had prepared for war with Germany, and Pierre's brothers were drafted into the army. The Alsatian Jewry, forewarned of the situation by refugees, went into hiding in southern France. In May 1940, the fears of war were realized as the German army rolled through the French defensive lines. After declaring Alsace Judenrein in July 1940, the Gestapo began sorting through French police records to pursue members of the next undesirable group, the gay community. Upon reporting the theft of his wristwatch in 1939 from Le Square Steinbach, Pierre inadvertently exposed his sexuality. His very presence in a location frequented by gay men resulted in his name being added to a catalog of suspected homosexuals. Alsatian police had unknowingly drafted death lists for Nazi invaders. On May 3, 1941, the Gestapo summoned 17-year-old Pierre and 12 others to the Mulhouse police station. German interrogators questioned the group, demanding to know the names, addresses, and meeting places of Mulhouse's gay community. Frustrated by the group's solidarity, SS officers began a sadistic spree of beating, lasting 10 days. The detainees were subsequently deported 70 miles north to the Schirmeck-Vorburg internment camp. A blue bar on Pierre's stiff camp uniform indicated he was a Catholic prisoner. In most other camps, homosexual prisoners wore the infamous pink triangles that ostracized and singled them out for abuse. As opposed to the nearby Natzweiler concentration camp, Schirmeck was a protective custody camp designed to re-educate Alsatians who were seen as uncooperative. Among the inmates were priests who refused to hold Mass in German, and young girls who had committed innocent acts of resistance. Although not a concentration camp, appalling brutality was not unknown to the detainees of Schirmeck. Every morning, Pierre and the other prisoners reported for roll call. On one such morning, a young prisoner was dragged to the camp center. Pierre soon recognized him as Joe, his lover from Mulhouse. He had prayed that Joe would somehow evade the authorities, yet now he stood just feet away, slated for execution. Choking back tears, he watched as his love was stripped and masked with a tin pail. His sentencing was announced, and vicious German shepherds were ordered to attack. Before Pierre's own eyes, the boy he loved was murdered in a most sickening way, the pail over his head amplifying his pained screams. 3 months after turning 18, in November 1941, Pierre was freed without explanation. After being drafted into the Wehrmacht, he fought in Eastern Europe against the advancing Soviet army until the war's conclusion. Pierre kept silent about his experience until 1982, when he came forward in response to the Bishop of Strasbourg's denunciation of homosexuals as sick. As a victim of Nazism, Pierre wrote, "I publicly declare with all my strength that such statements have promoted and justified the extermination of millions of sick people." He went on to publish his memoirs in 1994, and that same year was finally recognized as a victim of the Holocaust. Until his death in 2005, a small candle permanently burned in his kitchen in memory of his love, Joe. Pierre Seal's tribulations, in my eyes, retain an immense significance in the context of Holocaust experiences for 2 reasons. In the first, over the course of my research, I found it difficult to comprehend that these horrendous atrocities were inflicted upon someone my age. Looking around my school, I attempt to picture arrests and deportations of friends, perhaps even executions, and find it difficult to confront. Yet it can happen. It has happened. It is clear to me that when one group is seen as somehow less than human, age is no longer a factor. Youths and adults alike faced ultimate annihilation during the Holocaust. The means by which this was reached were of little importance. Finally, the primal aspect of Pierre's story is that unlike other nationalities, the majority of 175ers were not recognized as victims of the Holocaust. While Germany's anti-Semitic laws were voided after World War II, paragraph 175 was enforced for 2 more decades. For this, I am appalled. In the final stage of Genocide Watch's 8 stages of genocide, the mass killing is denied. If not for the testimony of rare survivors like Pierre Seal, the Holocaust of tens of thousands of gays during the Nazi regime could very well have been indefinitely denied. This, according to Genocide Watch, extends the crime of genocide to future generations of victims. It is a continuation of the intent to destroy the group. Through Pierre Seal's story, youth as myself may learn the importance of ending cycles of animosity. It is perhaps the only redeeming inheritance of one of history's darkest pages.
At this time, as we reverently remember all those who died at the hands of the Nazis, let us recall the following victims of Nazi persecution who, after having escaped the Holocaust or survived it, resettled in our community and who have since passed away. Their presence among us served as a living testimony to the strength of the human spirit in the face of great adversity, as well as to the ultimate victory of good over evil. Their memory will continue to do so. Esther Avrak, Saul Avrak, Erna Blahnik, Zelig Boyne, Eric Kahn, Ruth Kahn, Sabina Selnick, Leon Selnick, Irene Friedlieb, Walter Friedlieb, Dorothy Goldwasser, Adolf Heumann, Erna Heumann, Esther Katz, Isidore Katz, Doris Keene, Edmund Keene, Norbert Mattis, Dora Mayer, Eugene Moses, Trudy Moses, Jacob Trupp, Sonia Trupp. As we offer our special Holocaust memorial prayer, let us also take to heart the following sentiments expressed so powerfully by Elie Wiesel. Let us say Kaddish not only for the dead, but also for the living who have forgotten the dead. And let the prayer be more than a prayer, more than a lament. Let it be outcry, protest, and defiance. And above all, let it be an act of remembrance. For that is what the victims wanted, to be remembered, at least to be remembered. For just as the killer was determined to erase Jewish memory, so were the dying heroes and fighting martyrs bent on maintaining it alive. They are now being defamed or forgotten, which is like killing them a second time. Let us say Kaddish together and not allow others to betray them posthumously. We invite those who are uncomfortable reading the Aramaic prayer to join in reciting the names of the ghettos and concentration camps as we rise for the Holocaust Kaddish. Yit Gadal Lodge, Yit Kadash Gurus, Shemei Rabbah Vasa, Ba'alma Divar Hirute, Bogdanovka, V'yamlich Malchute, Ravensbrück, V'chayechon of Yomechon, Vilna, V'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Treblinka, Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv, Chelno, V'yimru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam V'Lomei Almaya. Yitbarak V'yishtabak Beljet. V'yitpa'ar V'yitroman Buchenwald. V'yitnaser V'yitadar Sobibor. V'yitaleh V'yitalal Madanik. Shmei Dekucha B'richu. Mauthausen. Le'ela. Babiyar. Minkol Birchata V'shirota. Bergen-Belsen. Tuz B'chata V'nechemata. Dachau, Da'amiran Bi'alma, Auschwitz, V'yimru Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mamav, Huviyaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yimru Amen. You may be seated.
The pain, the destruction, the survival, the remembering, the searching, the finding, the bewilderment. What does it all mean? To attempt to answer in any fashion, let alone in the imposing terminology of Holocaust theology, appears disloyal to the painful experience and poignant testimony of the survivors. How insipid verbal constructions appear when set beside the victims and the survivors of the destruction of East European Jewry, the Jewish community that lived continuously in one place longer than any other Jewish community in all of Jewish history. How futile theology appears beside the loss of so much, so fast, so shockingly. If the testimony of the survivors is in agreement on anything, it is on this. The Holocaust did not end in 1945. The survivors' attempt to live after the death of all they knew became as much a part of the Holocaust as the destruction itself. Following the vast losses of the Holocaust, answers and replacements were not forthcoming. Cut compensations were. New spouses, new children, new friends, the State of Israel, new yeshivot, Jewish reawakening in Russia and elsewhere, small kernels all, but we have nurtured them, made them grow. Whether they are as yet momentous depends on one's personal vision, but there can be no gainsaying that there is far more than a kernel of new sanctity implanted in the post-Holocaust Jewish world. Compensations enable Jews to reaffirm the present, to interpret calamity in a way not evident at the time of the calamity, to survive not for the sake of survival, but for a higher purpose, to see again the finger of God in the fate of the Jewish people. Lead us back to you, O Eternal One, that we may be restored. Give us new such days as we had of old. The 8th candle is lit by Dr. Ralph Troll. We shall never forget.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here with you tonight. The philosopher George Santayana once warned, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. But I don't think that goes far enough. Just because one remembers the past does not lead to the conclusion that we will avoid the same outcome. Now, remembering is important. That is why we are gathering here tonight. But remembering is not enough. Having the knowledge of and the direct and indirect experience of the effects of the pain and the suffering caused by the Shoah, it is incumbent upon us to act to prevent future genocide. You know, we often wonder how could people, how could countries stand by and let the Holocaust happen? But we know how. For we have stood by as it has happened to others. In Cambodia, in Bosnia, in Rwanda, in Sudan, in Burma, in the Congo. In some cases, the world responded, often with too little, too late. Often, such as in the Sudan, the response was initiated due to the grassroots activism of students and religious organizations. We, as individuals coming together to act, can make a difference in the world. I think intervention to prevent genocide absolutely is necessary. But again, I don't think it goes far enough. Let us take actions prior to the start of violence. At the first sound of hate speech, let us reach out as communities united. But even that is not far enough. Let us start building relationships with those that are other than us, so that they can know what is in our hearts, and we can know what is in their hearts, before the start of hate speech, before the demonization of others. Now, I am not a naive person. I know there is still anti-Semitism, even in this country and in the wider world. We see it in the denial literature. We hear it sometimes in the whispers at country clubs. We hear it shouted over the internet. And we know that there are individuals with power who would like to see the destruction of the state of Israel. So we must always be vigilant. Events such as tonight and this whole month raises awareness about genocide, anti-Semitism, and injustice. But we cannot rest on our laurels. Let us remember how far we have come, but let us remember how far we still have to go. Let our memories tonight not be used just to create fear in our hearts for our own future. Let it remind us that we are part of a larger world, and we can and we must impact it with our values. To paraphrase Rabbi Hillel, if we are not for ourselves, who will be? But if we are only for ourselves, what are we? So I ask you, when you leave here tonight, to not just go back to your work and your study groups and say what a nice service this was, or whatever else you may say about it. I encourage you to get involved, to take action, actions that will lead to a more just world, a world that is safe for the Jewish people to live without fear of annihilation, and a world that is safe for all people to live without the fear of annihilation. Let us replace fear with love, so that one day, just as in the words of the prophet Amos, justice shall roll down like water and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. This is the life we are given. Let us go far enough and do good with it.
Please join in Bashana.